Hey there, all you in Radioland. I know, I'm a day late. Don't worry, I'm not dead. I mean, I did almost die. Maybe I don't know. I'll tell you the story, and you can tell me whether or not I almost died. Good? So I didn't make it to the prison. I feel like after my usual ramblings, I should just be clear and set my expectations. Make it straightforward. So, cutting to the chase, I packed up enough food for me and maybe one other survivor to get there and back again. I packed up some gear for sleeping, a bag, and a tarp. No tent, because it's the dry season, and Utah's a desert. It's almost usually a dry season. Except for when it's winter. I'm also trying polyphasic sleep patterns. I'm reading that it can help keep you sharper and more alert. Yeah, I should probably explain polyphasic. It's this thing where instead of you sleeping 8 to 10 hours in one night, you convince your brain it only needs 2 20-minute naps and a 4-hour nap throughout your day. Since I don't have someone to cover a guard or watch or something while I'm sleeping, it feels like it just makes the most amount of sense to make my sleep way less hazardous. But that's not the point or focus right now. Anyways, back to the story. We're focusing, Gabe. Whew. So I start heading down south. Follow the interstate. I don't want to walk on it. It's not like there's a lot of cars that are dead on the road or anything. You know, a few here and there. The event happened pretty early in the morning, so there's a few cars and buses out, but not anything major. I still didn't want to draw any attention to myself by walking on the interstate alone, and part of that attention was the attention of the others. I saw a few groups of the others. Groups. Now, I've seen them in groups before, and they all kind of move pretty aimlessly. So this wasn't, like, new or concerning, but every now and again I'd get the flash of Royal Army guy, and I just think, maybe one of them is like that. So when I saw a group, I would go into a home or something. Have you ever been in someone's home without them knowing? There's a weird sensation behind it. Like, it feels like you're being watched with these unseeable eyes. And you never really know what's going to be just around the corner. Even on those homes that are built to look exactly the same. You know, the blueprint and the layout is all exactly the same. The outside is decorated the same. Maybe the only thing different is just the paint. What is it that my mom called them? Cookie cutters, I think? So, I would go into one of these homes, take a look around, make sure I was alone, and barricade myself somewhere. Maybe a closet, or a bathroom, or something, just in case if I missed someone in that place I'm hiding out. Then I would nap for 20 minutes, maybe 4 hours. I really couldn't say. It's still hard to keep track of time, especially, you know, when you're sleeping. But usually by the time I would get up, that group that I saw would be gone. But I would still run into a lot of these groups. And every time I saw one, I would go hide. And this would occur every few hours. I started to notice, though, that the groups, a raven would be circling them up above. Every single group. If it was like one or two of the others, no raven. Or is it a crow? What's the difference? I'll have to look that up later. But it got to the point where I sat and I watched a group, and I couldn't tell, as they shambled around, if the raven was leading the group or following, you know? Or was it like when a flock of birds are flying and they all know what direction to fly next, as they shift and turn and make patterns in the air? After watching a few groups of the others for a little while and realizing I wasn't making any progress and I was letting myself get distracted, I know, let's all pretend to be surprised, I moved south. I was playing it safe, or as safe as I could. Even if I just saw one moving close to me, I would wait for it to move far enough away that when I moved forward, it was out of the way. Just not even going to worry about it. And I know, you're probably thinking, but Gabe, bring a baseball bat. Get a gun. And one, I'm not a huge advocate when it comes to violence. If I can, I'll try and talk my way out of a situation. Or never be there in the first place. But mostly two. I read books all the time, you guys. Do I look like a guy who could swing a bat effectively? Let alone shoot a gun with any sort of accuracy? Video games, surprise, surprise, not real life. It's not as easy as just you point and pull the trigger. There's the kick of a gun, there's wind variance, there's your grip, there's were you breathing right? And what if you do have a gun? And then the really violent ones hear it whenever you fire it, and they come running for you. Right? They come running for you. Now you're surrounded, and well, who knows what's going to happen next? Sorry. Anyways, I was probably walking for a full day and a half. And then I remember seeing one of the others starting to shamble towards me. Just a single one by itself. He was ahead of me a little bit. And I was on this stretch of road where cars were parked on either side of me. And there was this kind of maze pattern because it looked like either during the event or just beforehand, several cars crashed into each other. And it kind of made this maze of cars you had to walk through. So I see him, and I'm thinking, okay, no big deal. I will walk through the maze, and by the time I'm out, it should take me a couple of minutes just to make sure I'm safe. This guy will lose interest. This guy was angry for me. And I looked behind me. I could see another one following my exact path. And then the guy behind me just gets angry. Not Royal Army guy, but still really intense. And he starts climbing over the cars, and this inspires the one ahead of me. And he starts making these snarling noises and moves towards me faster, no longer shambling, but with purpose. And I could hear these dragging footsteps as they are clearly picking up the pace, and they're both aiming right at me. Feeling trapped and cornered, I started breathing fast and starting to panic, and I decided if I hide, if I kneel behind this car, I'm out of their line of sight, maybe they'll forget that I was there. Kind of a vision thing, right? I still don't know how the rules of this work. So I kneel behind this car, broken glass everywhere, and I'm trying not to put my knees on the ground. I'm afraid I'm going to cut myself. And as I'm looking down at the glass, I hear another growling from inside the car. I heard a third one starting to claw at the interior door, trying to figure out how to move beyond this temporary obstacle to get to me. I looked her dead in the eyes, and I screamed. I'm not afraid to admit it. I screamed loudly. And when I did, that inspired all of them. And they just moved faster and harder. And the one in the car, she figured out there wasn't any glass and started crawling out of the broken window. So I ran. I jumped onto the next car and I moved off the road and they started following me, snarling and growling. I thought I was going to outrun them, but they moved with a purpose, and I could feel tears starting to fall. And I think I was thinking about the fact that this was going to be the way I was going to die. A month, maybe 2 of this bullcrap, and I was going to die because I was selfish to think I could save someone. And when I saved someone, that meant I had someone to talk to. And I was just hysterical. And my body kept running. I was running between buildings, through backyards, and I saw an apartment complex not too far from me. It had this U shape to it, and I thought, perfect place to hide. I didn't want to die. As nice as it would be to not have to run away from this, and to stop trying so hard, just let the peace of the end take me. And I turned a corner, thinking, with this apartment building and cluster of them all together, I'll go inside. But in the middle of that U-shaped space was a playground. And it was like a scene from The Birds. They were all sitting on the swings and the slides, the metal that holds it all together, that thing that you just sit on and it spins you around. And I just froze there as they all simultaneously turned their heads to look at me. I remember one time I was riding my bike to school, high school age, maybe a little bit younger. And I was cutting through this backfield, and it's a little bit of a shortcut, but it's pretty empty. And there was a flock of seagulls. And I'm thinking it'd be funny, because with like 14 of them, that if I rode my bike down the middle of them and scare them, it'd be hilarious in the way that a 14, 15-year-old kid would. So I do exactly that. I ride my bike as fast as I can. And just as I'm about a few feet from the flock, I just whooped at them. And they did what you think they would and just fly away. Funny, right? Wrong. So wrong. As I'm still a ways away from the school, I have a good chuckle to myself. Until I looked up, and there's a handful of them circling me, all while I'm riding my bike forward. I'm a little bit scared, but I figure, hey, Gabe, it's not that big of a deal. I still have a bit to go. They'll eventually lose interest, and they'll go back to doing their thing. But they didn't. The closer I got to the building, though, the lower they flew to me. Closer and closer. It was intense. Just this drawn-out silence of me pushing my bike through the morning dew as hard as I could, and these birds circling and lowering themselves closer and closer to me. I must have gone for 10 minutes or so. I remembered I was scared. The seagulls were ready for revenge. I was so scared that I rode my bike into the school building. I got in trouble because I left a long brake mark across the floor. I did not want to stop, though. So you can say, I'm not a big fan of birds. And birds also include crows. Or ravens, or whichever one it is. Regardless, sharper beaks than seagulls, meaner claws than seagulls, and insanely smart. So smart. And I'm frozen. I'm looking at this playground full of ravens, and they're all staring back at me. I can feel my breath stuck in my chest, and I can hear the shuffling and the growling behind me getting closer, the growling and the snarling getting louder, and I don't know what to do. Do I run into the murder? Or turn and face my death? I couldn't decide. And I sat there for what felt like hours. And then I heard one of the ravens just caw. And they all started flapping their wings, not moving at first. And then they all took to the air and they flew past me. No, not past me, but around me. All around me. I was shocked. I was so shocked I couldn't raise my hands to protect my head. I'm in silence. It must have gone on for several minutes. As they fly into their group, and after a few moments of this, they're all gone. The park looked like it was empty this entire time. There is no evidence of birds. The swings aren't moving, and there's not a single feather on the ground. And then I realized I didn't hear the shuffling from behind me anymore. And that scared me. Thinking that they were already on me. So I started to turn my head to look back, and I felt this squeeze on my shoulder. And it was a raven. They look huge when they're that close to you. It was just looking at me, and its claws digging into my shoulder. I still have little marks on my shoulder, and it stings when you touch it. And it turned its head in that way that birds do, kind of on an angle. And I was just staring right back at it. Then it kind of went upright, and I swear to King and Country, it looked at me and went, "Hey." And that's when I broke. I started laughing. I laughed so hard, I felt tears rolling down my face. Hard to breathe because you can't get enough air fast enough kind of laughter. It's been 6, maybe 7 weeks on my own, and the first thing that I hear, besides my own voice and the groans of the others, is a raven saying hi. And that's all the contact I'm gonna get before I die. I laughed for far too long, and looked at that raven on my shoulder, and it stared back at me very inquisitively, and then it proceeded to squawk at me and then fly off to join its flock. It took me a moment to catch my breath, and I started running back as hard as I could. But the logic in my brain began to work, fortunately. Gotta be smart. Hide. Be careful. Don't draw attention to yourself. Notice your surroundings. And what I noticed is that one of the ravens was following me for probably a mile or so. And it reminded me of the seagulls. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to get back here, because I was probably playing it way too cautiously. So if you're in the prison waiting on me, I'm sorry. I let you down. Maybe I should go back. Maybe there's someone still there, and I am letting him down. Letting you down. I just wish there was a way you could communicate to me, so I know you're out there. Anyways, I'm back here at the college. I guess I missed my normal day to be there. I hope I didn't miss anyone. But I'll be back next week, like I always do. From midday to sundown. Are the days getting longer? Or are they getting shorter? It's hard to keep track. But really, who cares? I'll be listening for a reply. Good luck. You aren't alone out there. And you don't have to be.